to sync up the audio, so we're good now.
Cool.
All right. What's up, guys? Welcome back to SoulScape, the podcast where we talk about anything and everything related to life, meaning, purpose, all that bullshit. You already know what's going on. Anyways, today, as you see, we are in a beautiful lecture hall, and it's not the biggest, but you know, we still are up here having a good voice and having a good chat with my good old friend Jack. How you doing, Jack?
Doing well, Armand. How are you doing?
I'm doing really good today, man. Tell me, how's life been treating you lately?
You know, life has been a little bundle of just craziness. I feel like every day is kind of a new day. That's something that it's a new challenge, you know?
Yeah.
Every day you have different stuff, just environmental factors that are just going to get thrown at you, and just figuring out how to go through them and just have that positive attitude, and it's what it's really about. Thank you for having me on.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you. I really like the way you talked about that in the sense of it's just like figuring it out, kind of going through life and being like, all right, here's another problem to solve, here's another thing to approach, here's another challenge, and you're just going to get over it. You're just going to like go through it. I had a friend who told me she's been like struggling a lot with school and life and just like a whole ton of things lately. She said something really dope. She said the only way out is through.
Right.
And I've been thinking about that. Like the only way out is through. So I think it's kind of applicable to what you were saying. That you just got to get through things instead of trying to avoid them all the time.
Yeah, I mean, that's really exactly what it is. Just realizing that you are the only person that actually controls your life. No one's going to come to your house and just pull you up every morning. Like, you have to be the one that gets yourself out of the bed. Really, nothing's stopping you from taking a path of laziness and just being comfortable, and just having that instant gratification. Nothing's stopping you. And the thing is, that really is detrimental to yourself long term.
Yeah, absolutely.
So just doing things every day that just help reach that long-term goal, which makes you really look within, because then you have to know what your long-term goal is and who you are as a person.
Now, okay, so here's my thing, and I kind of want to get into this. I met you, I think, around like March or maybe end of February, or like around that time. So 2022, March, now it's October. It's like, what, 6-7 months ago. So tell me kind of where your mindset was in that time when you were, I think we met in the sauna or some shit. Shout out to sauna. Fucking love that shit.
Love being in the sauna.
But tell me like kind of where you were at, 6-7 months ago.
Yeah, so like you said, we met in, I remember it was late April.
Yeah.
Right before the end of the school year.
Good word.
Could have even been early May. So April 9th, that was the day that I decided to take it upon myself and turn my life around. Before then, I was pretty much in the worst position of my life. You know, every day I was smoking weed. Before March, actually, when I started smoking weed, I would say that was actually a turnaround point.
Yeah.
I was drinking a lot. Had no real control over myself. My instant gratification was just really taking control of me. I find that I just didn't really have a sense of who I was. And then in January, I went through I would describe it as a pretty brutal breakup for me.
Yeah.
And it happens, it was like my first sort of relationship.
Yeah, bro, those first ones hurt. The first hurts, bro.
Yeah. And the worst part is that like it didn't really just end from a conversation that we said that we were over. It kind of just like faded out. Yeah. Because I actually learned a lot about myself. I learned that I do get attached really easily, and I can tend to get really clingy and then lose myself in the process. So I guess no matter who you're really dating, you should only really be dating someone if you really know who you are.
That's facts.
Yeah, because then that person will then just add to your life.
Absolutely. I think it's like, just touching upon this real quick, I think when it comes to like dating and love and all that stuff, especially in like our modern context, modern society and culture, it's very kind of like messed up in my opinion. I think the way we look at dating is like, well, at least in high school, I think a lot of people dating in high school was like using people for sex, because sex was like dope as fuck. Like, I'm not even gonna lie, bro, when you discover sex, you're like, wow, this shit's pretty fucking cool, right? Yeah. And like arguably so, but
right,
or rightly so.
Right.
But I think with dating has kind of had like changed from this very like personal lovey-dovey kind of thing to to now, especially freshman year of college, dating and like love, it's very kind of like I'm clinging on to you because you have become a part of me, and I can't separate me from you.
Exactly.
And you are like, you give me so much comfort in this and like that. And it's almost like a validation thing, I think, to a degree.
Yeah.
Like in the sense that you may date someone because like they're constantly giving you like comfort and always like this love and attention because you're not giving that to yourself. And I think you are looking for that love, that attention, and that guidance from someone outside of you.
Yeah.
When in reality, like it should come from within first.
Exactly. No, that's exactly sort of a really key point where if you don't actually know who you are, and I've asked a lot of people, like, who are you?
Yeah, it's a good question, bro.
It is, and it's one of those questions that I really had to ask myself first.
Yeah.
And then I see a lot of these people, and these are people, like my friends, for example, that are extremely just rock bottom.
Yeah.
Similar situation with me. I have my one friend, obviously I'm not going to name him, but his girlfriend broke up with him, didn't really know how to handle it over the summer. I like tried to get into the gym, but the thing is, you can't have someone push you if you don't want to be pushed.
Yeah, right there. Like you can't push someone else to do something that they don't want to do.
Exactly. You can only make suggestions, and if they don't take that suggestions, you can't also take it personally. Some people take it personally. People just go things about their own pace. People figure things out differently. And I'll actually share a story a little bit later down the line of something I figured out about myself that kind of gave me context to something about my entire life.
Go ahead now, bro.
No, I'll share that later.
Okay.
But yeah, so that was something that was really interesting, and I'll actually get to the story about how, and this I actually found out this week, actually. So it's been a kind of hectic week.
Yeah.
And it's all based on just like this self-improvement aspect of I'm the only one that can improve my own life.
Yeah.
People like to leave things to chance and luck, but the thing is, you also create your own luck. Because if I want to meet a girl, well, I'm never going to meet a girl if I don't go to places where there are girls to meet.
Exactly.
So if I sit in my room all day, well, I'm never going to meet any girls. So then I might wonder, oh, why am I so bad with girls? Well, it's not that I'm bad with girls. It's just that I never put myself in a situation to be around them.
It's okay. So I'm reading a book right now called The Luck Factor by Richard Wiseman. Very good book. I'm gonna send it to you right after this.
Sure.
It's like a psychology book about luck and how to like maximize your luck, right?
Yeah.
Because it goes into exactly what you're talking about. Like so many times we think of people as just like unlucky or lucky or like this or that, and so much of life is up to like chance. Which I'm gonna say like part of life is chance. That's just baseline fact.
Well, sure.
But that doesn't mean you can't increase your luck or increases your chance of running into the right types of people.
Right.
So I think like they talk about like some of the traits that lucky people have. One of them is openness. So like open to new experiences, to new things, to whether it be new foods or new people or new whatever. One of them is extroversion. So like how extroverted someone is, because that just you meet more people, you have more opportunities.
To an extent, because I would consider myself extremely introverted.
Really?
Yeah. Believe it or not, because I mean, when I met you, like I was pretty extroverted on the outside.
Yeah.
Where I would talk to everyone. I still do. I talk to every single person I meet.
Yeah.
And I try and actually form deeper relationships because I'm not someone that likes surface level conversation. I don't like to talk about people or events or things. I like to talk about ideas. And I think that served me really well because, well, other people also like to talk about ideas for the most part. Yeah. And it's also about just being around the right people and realizing that as long as you're happy with yourself, you don't need external validation.
True.
So I'm going to go back to your original question about sort of my background and how, like when we met, what I was doing before and then during. So, like I said, I was extremely depressed, super anxious every day. That's actually where the weed came in. I completely stopped drinking and then switched to more using weed. Yeah. Because, well, one, I was focusing a lot more on my diet and calorie intake. Yeah. Because I was not extremely overweight, but I didn't have that much muscle, but I had a lot of fat. Yeah. Probably mid 20%. Yeah. So I completely cut out alcohol because one, that made me feel pretty bad every morning.
Truth, bro.
Completely, I would just throw up all the time.
Yeah.
Wasn't myself. Weed at least put me in a more calm state.
Yeah.
Which I think I needed because it gave my head some clarity.
Yeah.
And then actually I've been doing a lot of neuroscience research on that.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit later.
Let's talk about that later.
Yeah, exactly. Sure.
Yo, shut the fuck up, Boston. Like, I'm telling you, bro, Boston is such an angry city. There's always just people, like, honking their horns or being assholes for no reason.
Yeah.
No reason. Anyways, continue. Yeah. I'll figure that shit out. Maybe I'll keep it in. Yeah. Fucking Boston.
Bloopers.
Yeah. Alright, continue.
Sure. So then April 9th is the day I would say I turned it around. Because on April 3rd was probably the last time was the last time I've thrown up from alcohol. Mm-hmm. Even the last time I've gotten drunk, like genuinely drunk. I had 8 shots of gin. It was 4 double shots. 2 drinks in, I think it was a 20-minute span. Wow. It was a low ball glass, so it was a gin and tonic with 2 double shots of gin and a little bit of tonic.
You're crazy,
just
bro.
Chugged it. And that's kind of how down I was. Yeah. Because people around me saw it as a problem, but for me, I just saw it as loosening up, which I think is a big excuse a lot of people give. If you can't loosen up naturally, then you have a lot of self-work to do.
That's facts.
Especially through meditation.
Yeah. No, I feel like so many people, like, I have friends who do this, that, like, and I'm not against drinking, I'm not against smoking. I'm like, if you want to do your drugs or whatever you do, because, like, I smoke, I drink, I do all that shit, right? But that shouldn't be your only way of, like, settling down in the night.
Yeah.
Right? That shouldn't be, you shouldn't have to, like, have to smoke weed or have to have that cocktail before you go to sleep in order to go to sleep.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Preach.
Yeah. And then that goes on a whole thing of formulating your circadian rhythm to a specific.
Yeah. Andrew Huberman type shit.
Exactly.
But so you decided after this drink, this awful time, you're like, all right, fuck it, April 9th, let's run this shit.
Yeah, April 9th. That was the day that I took my first progress picture, and also it was the first day I started my creatine loading phase. Mm-hmm. So I kind of just went all in. Mm-hmm. The first day, that April 9th, I went to the gym for 3 hours.
Damn.
I did a 3-hour lift. And then also I did my sauna recovery, cold shower. Oh, I don't know if I was in cold showers at that point. Eventually I got there, and I still do that today. Mm-hmm. Or at least I try to.
Yeah, I love that cold shower shit.
Yeah, right when you wake up, it's great. And then I sort of just went all in. My whole personality was just gym, eating healthy, and self-improvement.
It went from like 0 to 100 in like a span of a minute.
Yeah.
Because, or like maybe 0 to 90. It took a while to get.
No, I would say it was 0 to 100.
Oh, word, even better.
Or even maybe like 30 to 100.
Yeah, perfect.
You know, I was coasting. Like I used to do crew in high school, so like I knew my way around the gym.
Yeah.
So like I used to go.
You're familiar.
Yeah, exactly. So I wasn't like going there and not knowing anything.
That's good.
But I just focused on just being 1% better every day. Progressive overload, hitting my protein, being in a calorie deficit. And it's funny because while I was focusing on all that stuff, and this was while I was a freshman in the freshman dorms, on the meal plan, so it's not like I could just make my own food. So I just had a lot of chicken, white rice, but I also let myself, just enjoy life. I don't think a lot of this stuff has to be so strict to the point where you hate your diet, because if you hate your diet, you're in the wrong diet.
Facts, bro.
Yeah.
Facts. Yeah, you shouldn't hate the way you eat.
Exactly.
Like, especially, I have a lot of friends because I'm so into bodybuilding, and like I have so many friends that they're telling me like, bro, this meal plan sucks, like this and that. And I get if you're like, when you're in a bodybuilding prep and you're losing weight, like that makes sense, right? Because you have 12 weeks of hell. But when you're in the off season and like you're trying to gain weight, like go ahead and eat that fucking piece of cheesecake, bro.
Yeah, I mean I have 4 cookies here.
Yeah.
And then I did do intermittent. This is during the summer. Yeah. Some intermittent fasting. Yeah. I actually did one today because I have been off my game for the past few weeks. Yeah. And I'm totally like open about how I was off my game. Where I haven't been going to the gym consistently, and
Yeah.
my diet hasn't been consistent. I haven't been making my food. That's just because school, I've been doing a lot of side projects and just
Yeah.
stuff that's been getting in the way of life.
No, exactly. There's different, like, I think you go through different, like, arcs of
Yeah.
your life in a way where it's like there are different priorities and different focuses.
Exactly.
And that completely makes sense.
Yeah, and like this summer when I had no obligations, I would wake up, the first thing that was on my mind was the gym. I went to the gym and I was excited to do it every single day.
Yeah.
And even if I had a bad day, that was when I had to go
Yeah.
because the days when you're not on your game are when it's the most important. As long as it's not interfering with other aspects of life.
Yeah.
So this summer I went every single day. That Sunday was my core and cardio day. And every single time I went, I didn't half-ass it because, well, I would only be wasting my own time. And I would only be fooling myself. And the person who you really need to be honest to is yourself.
Facts.
You know, I feel like the world lies to us in so many different ways every day.
Yeah.
And we also put out our own lies. So if you lie to yourself, then you can never actually figure out who you really are. And that's like one of the biggest things. And I feel like I was lying to myself for so long. I knew like sort of some of my passions and hobbies, but it was a short, I could count it on one hand.
Yeah. Yeah.
Give it a sec.
Yeah, no, there's a professor yelling. There's a professor
Yeah.
just yelling, but respect. Anyways, so what would you say is like, we've kind of been like touching around this topic of like figuring out who oneself is
Yeah.
and what oneself is. Now, like, what did that journey look for you? Like, what kind of things did you do, maybe practically, that
Sure.
kind of led to that discovery, let's say?
A lot of reading.
Mm.
I would say there's two books that are the most important books for every single person to read.
Mm-hmm.
How to Win Friends and Influence People,
Mm-hmm.
Dale Carnegie, and Atomic Habits by James Clear.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned earlier about being extroverted. I think it's something. It's all about social skills, and I think it's something that you can learn.
For sure, 100%.
Yeah.
100% social skills are learnable. Just like how you could learn to, sew a button or how to build a car or how to do anything in life, you could learn how to socialize.
Exactly. And that's something that I used to be really poor at.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people that know me would know me as a floater, where I don't actually have a lot of friend groups. I'll have close friends, but I can't say I'm a part of any friend group.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because in group situations, I do get very introverted. If I'm talking to you on a one-on-one or there's a few people, then I'm totally okay. I thrive there.
Mm-hmm.
But when you put me in like a party scene or like a big event where I have to just kind of like know my way around the social scene, for my entire life, the first 18 years, I would say, I was really poor at it.
Yeah.
And that really affected me physically, mentally,
emotionally, everything.
Yeah, everything. It really did affect me because, well, if you're not a social person, we live in a social environment.
Yeah.
And that will really affect you, especially with social media now, where you're comparing yourself constantly. And this actually leads me to where I was going with like something I found out about myself. So I was getting a lot into like meditation, neurology, learning about how the brain works, different hormones and the receptors in your brain, how everything correlates with each other.
Yeah.
So I was actually doing some experiments on my brain and talking to some people. I actually found out I have Asperger's.
Really?
Yeah, so Asperger's is on the autism spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes a lot of sense because, well, I went to a psychiatrist and basically I am the textbook definition of someone with Asperger's.
Mm-hmm.
And that actually added a lot of clarity to who I am, and it added to my identity because it explains a lot of the why of who I am. It explains some of like my core like values and how I sort of operate. So I've been able to use that and not view it as like, oh, like this is something that happened to me, like it's a genetic mutation.
It's debilitating.
Yeah.
It's like a victim mentality. Nah, fuck
Exactly.
that shit.
No. I see it as I'm actually extremely lucky because this is a gift. Because it's like with Asperger's, it does give you a massive social disability where I don't empathize with people naturally. I'll understand people's emotions logically and then be able to feel people's emotions, but I don't necessarily have that ability to mirror naturally. Like I have to think about it. Like I have to think about keeping eye contact and talking slower. I have to think about sort of what someone's saying and the cues for this being sarcasm or the different tones and how that correlates. So I've had to learn that throughout my entire life, which is why when I was younger and didn't know all these things, it was a real struggle. And then when I sort of did create this confidence through lifting, I wasn't as scared in social situations because I realized that every single person has their highs and lows, and everyone can sort of like relate to that. So also one thing with Asperger's is that the way you think is a lot different. At least for me personally, I think of things in terms of the bigger picture.
Yeah.
So how does something I'm doing right now relate to a bigger goal I have? I also can hyperfixate a lot because also with this, I do have really bad ADHD.
Yeah.
Where I hyperfixate on things a lot. Like as you saw in the beginning of this semester, I was hyperfixating a lot on physics, even though I'm a finance major.
Yeah.
Which has a lot of its gifts and real, like if I learn how to use it properly, I could use it to my advantage because I know that I could focus for a long time on something and be able to ask the right questions to get to the right answer.
Well, I think that's one thing you and I kind of have in common, where it's like we get obsessed with something.
Yeah.
That is like that obsession with this certain thing, this certain skill, this certain industry. Like when we find it and we're like, whoa, this is super fucking cool. We'll like sit down on the computer for like hours, just researching, learning, finding like learning all the history about it, like all the influential people, like all this.
Yeah.
And I think it's funny I say that as well. It's like I'm cursed with a blessing in a way, because it's this like great ability for me to focus for long amounts of time, like for months on end on this certain skill or this certain thing or this fascinating concept that just racks my brain. But at the same time, it's like sometimes I get so involved with that world that like I forget it's a world within this world.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, also another thing that I hyperfixated on was sort of the idea of perception. How every single person quite literally is the center of their own universe.
Oh, 100%.
Because I could look at this microphone and for me it's 2 feet from me.
Yeah.
For you it's 4 feet from you.
Yeah.
Even though the microphone's right there, neither of us are right, but also neither of us are wrong. So it's that whole thing of understanding different events, and then if you can really master that ability, you could be a dangerously happy person.
Oh, wait, explain that a little bit. I want you to talk about that a little more.
Yeah, so I feel like in this day and age, there's so much competition between people.
Yeah.
But if you're only competing against yourself, then you're in a league of your own. Oh,
that's facts, bro. I'm not in competition with any of these motherfuckers around me. I'm only in competition with who I was yesterday,
and then who you are tomorrow.
Yeah.
You want to become who you think you can, reach your potential.
Yeah.
And then also become better from who you were yesterday.
Exactly.
Because we all make mistakes, but it's that idea of understanding that you are not your actions, thoughts, emotions. You're not what has happened to you. You are only how you choose to react to what you feel and what has happened to you. You are, it's almost like that fourth dimension of your mind, which is, I believe, to be perception.
Yeah.
Of the second week, I had this bike. It was my favorite bike. I've had it for years. I used to race with it. A lot of sentimental value for this bike.
Yeah.
I put it out in front of my gym, and I knew that in Boston, I didn't have the best bike lock. A lot of bikes get stolen. So I tried to be proactive. I ordered an air tag thing that gets hidden within the bike, so that I'd be able to track it even if it did get stolen. Funny enough, the day before it arrived, my bike, the lock got cut, and the bike got stolen. Yeah. There wasn't a genuine second during that incident where I felt grief, guilt, anger, hate, any negativity. Yeah. There was no adenosine or cortisol that was running through my brain. No. Running through my body. And that was because, I looked at the event differently. I knew that there was a risk of this happening. I accepted the risk.
Yeah.
And even though the probability of it happening was low, it still happened.
Exactly, it's still possible.
Yeah. Even if the odds, there's 1% chance of something happening, it can happen.
Yeah.
It's all about just random probability, and that's just kind of how I see life. That's what a lot of people determine as luck or miracles.
Yeah.
And it's also about, like, the way I sort of went about that situation was, well, I understood no matter how I feel about the situation, my bike is not where I put it.
Yeah.
Okay.
like no matter how you feel, like crying about it isn't gonna bring your bike back.
Exactly. So, well, this thing that has already happened to me in my life, no matter what's happened. So, what I can control is the actions I take and the emotions I feel.
Yeah.
Okay. And this could be part of like the Asperger's of how I think of things logically rather than just emotions. I don't really know. So
it's a pretty good thing to think things logically, though.
Yeah, I think
like
so.
executive decision.
Yeah.
Like it's pretty cool that logic exists.
Right.
Because I think if we only relied on our emotions, I mean, prior to me starting to get into self-improvement,
Yeah.
and prior to me realizing that like you are the author of your own life,
Exactly.
I used to be ruled by my emotions.
Yeah.
The things, you know, it was back in sophomore year of high school where like I've always been a very like philosophical person, like very interested in like philosophy and thinking deeply and like all that stuff. And back in like sophomore year of high school, I kind of thought I was a shit. Like I was the shit. I was very like egotistical. And,
okay, so a little narcissistic.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of like, I thought like I was above because I could like think cool things.
Sure.
But like, no. Anyways, though, I wrote down in one of these papers, like one of these essays I read for English class, that like the master, like the highest peak of oneself, like to reach oneself,
like Buddha.
Yeah, to become like this enlightened or like amazing human being who is like fucking God, you have to be in control of your emotions. And I didn't really understand that until I was introduced to Stoicism and Buddhism and all these like self-improvement techniques and things, and the fact that you can control the way you think. I was introduced to that like years later.
Yeah.
But that part, that like fascination with controlling your emotions, has always been like a central kind of part of the way I think.
Right. I mean, if you look at anyone who's truly successful, you don't often see them lashing out and doing things irresponsibly. I mean, you'll get the DUIs sometimes, but that, I guess, isn't really the people I'm talking about.
Yeah, exactly. Like the people who we admire or look up to aren't the people that are really irrational, that are constantly wavering in between places and like are governed by their emotions.
I also love how you said that these are the people that we look up to. And I actually find that whole idea of looking up to someone, in a sense, to be almost toxic.
Okay, wait. I want to stay on that thought real quick. I'm going to go reset my camera real quick, just because I have to reset it every like 30 minutes. Just 1 second. We're good, we're back. Continue. So, alright, so looking up to people is toxic. Explain that to me. I want to hear about it.
So, I'm not saying it's toxic in the sense that we shouldn't do it, because everyone needs someone to compare themselves to. But the reason I'm saying it's toxic is because you look at all these athletes, models,
businessmen, politicians, whoever.
And we only focus on the good aspects. But the thing is, we don't usually hear, in a public sense, all of the struggles behind the scenes that's going on.
Yeah.
So we see these people as role models, where it's kind of hard to say that because, well, they are successful, and we should try to emulate their successes in a natural way that translates to who we are. But the thing is, we also didn't see all the hard work that they went through, all the suffering. Because, I mean, there was this one comedian, I forget his name, but he went for years in his childhood to stand up, even though his jokes were not great. He did it every day. It was that consistency of just getting in front of a crowd. He was shy, and then over time he learned how to have better jokes. He learned how to run an audience. And then he became this super successful comedian. And a lot of people see this as, oh, he was just always naturally funny, but they don't see all the times where he got just silenced from his jokes and just booed at. Or even these other comedians that go to these small shows when testing out a new act, seeing what works, what doesn't. So it's all about putting in the effort and allowing yourself to fail.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing, because failing is truly how you can bring yourself up. If you have nothing to compare yourself to, like rock bottom, then it's almost hard to be grateful for your life because you have nothing to compare yourself to.
Absolutely.
And then you're just comparing yourself to other people from what you see on the outside, not the inside. Where I love what Matthew McConaughey said, where he said, someone asked him when he was 15, who's your role model? And he said, myself 10 years from now. And then when he was 25, it was actually the hero was what they were saying. The same person asked, well, are you your hero now? And he changed it and said, well, no, my hero is me when I'm 35.
Yeah.
So the thing is, his hero was always the future version of himself.
Yeah.
So if you compare yourself to who you want to be rather than who other people are, then, and that's just basically your benchmark for success. And then also comparing that to who you were a week ago, a month ago. I'm sure you have a lot more knowledge than you did a month ago about probably different things, or
absolutely,
you have a different perspective on something.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, I was thinking about this literally this week. I was like, yo, Armand, you've come a long fucking way, bro. I was just thinking that to myself, like how 2 years ago, like I would never even think I'm in the position where I'm at now, or the mindset, or the things that I have, and then more importantly, not the things that I have, but the things I'm going to have, or that I'm looking forward to. Like never would I think I've had this perspective of like, you know, I'm like in that kind of point where I'm transitioning from just like fitness and social media to like I'm learning how to make films. Like I'm really getting into that kind of stuff, and like never in my life would I think that I would be someone with a camera that would be like making films and like being really into this stuff. But that's just naturally how it's become, and like that's just the natural progression that I'm into. And it's so fascinating, and it makes me so proud of myself because, dude, like 3 years ago, I was a fat fuck in my goddamn like my parents' house in my fucking room, just jerking off and playing fucking Overwatch for hours on end. And in like such a short time, we've covered so much distance, and like this is awesome. But I can't wait to see what happens if I have like 5 years on this.
Yeah, there's an excitement aspect to it. I mean, for me, I've only been lifting for 5-6 months, and every day at the gym, I mean, people come up to me and ask me for advice, and it's almost like I don't really feel qualified, but I know I am because of the success I've had.
Yeah, right, bro. I always get that shit where it's like someone's like, yo, bro, like, either, oh, you look big as fuck, or like, yo, like, how do you do this well, or like, oh, can you tell me about that? And it's like, you're asking me? Like,
right. Although, the one thing is, I started giving genuine answers because I know that there's a reason they're asking me.
Exactly. Like, I love it when people come up and ask me, because like that means that person is genuinely looking for advice.
Right.
And they look up to you, not because like you're the shit, but because you've been through something that they're going through right now.
And the one thing that I think is a big misconception about the fitness industry is that it's not like it's easy to do.
No.
It takes a lot of hard work and a lot of sacrifice to build that body that you're really dreaming for. The only area that I wouldn't necessarily respect are the people that just do it for the purpose of getting women or looking sexy.
The fucking like the really superficial stuff.
Yeah, although the funny thing is that if you actually talk to the people that say that, that's not what they really mean. Yeah. There's a deeper issue that usually they just don't want to talk about. You know, I mean, if I just found someone like that I just met and talked about lifting, I'm not going to go through my whole backstory of how I was depressed and this got me out of it. I mean, maybe depending on how the conversation.
I was going to say, depending on the conversation.
And sometimes, you know, in social situations, you want to make a good impression, have that idea of being a cooler guy, and a lot of people have that sense of, well, looking amazing and getting the most women is how I'm going to achieve that. And it's almost, I mean, well, that's completely toxic because it has nothing to do with who you are. It's about external stuff, not internal.
Yes, it's about like the output of the process, but not the input. And the input's really what matters.
Yeah. Like for me, I love dressing nice.
Yeah.
But it's not for other people, it's for myself. Because I know that if I dress nice, then I'm gonna act the part.
Yes,
Like,
bro.
I'm not gonna wear a suit while playing video games.
Right? Exactly. You know what? That's one thing I've been doing lately, where it's like, so for example, like if you last semester, I would always be like just chilling in like sweatpants or like joggers or shit like that. Just because there's like I really didn't think about it too much. And like I ain't gonna lie, like it's comfortable as fuck. Like sweatpants are comfortable as fuck during the winter. And now it's starting to get colder, and it's like, I mean, luckily today it's actually really, really nice. Thank you, Boston. This can be like probably our last nice day.
I know. I'm wearing the short sleeves.
Yeah, I'm wearing shorts and like a t-shirt, right?
Yeah.
But what I've been doing is like instead of just opting for sweatpants when I wake up at fucking 6 a.m. to go for my 8 a.m. class, I'm like, you know what? Even though the jeans are a little more uncomfortable, I'm gonna wear them, and I put on a nice outfit, and I look at myself in the mirror, and it's like put together well, and the colors look good, and the shoes look good, and I'm like, you know what? I just feel better.
Yeah.
And you know what? Then I act like that person who is like the main character, who is like the author of their own story.
Right, and then some people see that as narcissistic, but the thing is, they don't. Well, I guess it's also about how you're portraying it. If you're portraying yourself as a braggart and someone of, oh, look at all this stuff I've done, then, well, people are rightfully so going to see you a little narcissistic. I mean, for me, I tend to talk a lot about myself or just about ideas and things that have happened because, well, that goes along with my social unawareness, but it's not necessarily that I'm trying to brag. It's more about this is something that I'm really passionate about and interested in, so maybe you'd also find it interesting.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I'm with you on that, where it's like, my favorite question to ask people, and I kind of think this is one thing that's wrong in society, the fact that we don't like talking about ourselves.
I agree.
I think it's not good to overinflate one's ego.
Right.
I'm in agreement with that. But I think now so many people are kind of afraid. Let me give you an example. Like, they're afraid to talk about their accomplishments. And like a practical example would be, look at like school and tests, right?
Sure.
If you're in a group of people, say you got your 5 or 6 friends, you're all in a study group studying for this test coming up, and all you guys are studying really hard, and finally comes to exam day. You do the exam, you yourself, you're feeling good about it. You're like, oh, I get this, I'm feeling good, like filling it out. You hand it in, you leave. The next day you get your grade back. Your friend's like, oh shit, what'd you get? What grade you get? And they're all looking around each other. Like, one of them's like, I got like a 75. The other one's like, I got like a 78. The other one's like, I got an 83. They're like, oh, good. Yeah, well. And then you're like, if they ask you, you're gonna say, oh, like, I got like a 98 or a 97, right? Because you studied, you did all this stuff, you did well. But part of you at that same time almost feels guilty.
Yeah.
Part of you feels guilty for doing well.
Yeah.
And for having like this achievement. And then you'll be like, oh, I just got lucky. And you'll downplay yourself.
Exactly.
I think it's stupid. I feel like we should stop downplaying ourselves as a society. Because like the things we accomplish and we do are really fucking cool.
Right. And also, I mean, that's an amazing point, because I used to do that when I was younger. It was also a competition of who could study the least.
Right?
Who could put in the least amount of effort and get the best grade.
Exactly. Like that was a thing that, I don't know about whoever is fucking watching or listening to this, but at least where I'm from, bro, like the whole thing was like, if you studied a lot, like you were a loser.
Yeah.
Which I think is fucking stupid.
Well, the thing is, to kids, we all compare ourselves, and we're all rebellious.
Yeah.
It's a big thing with childhood, and this is one of the big weaknesses, I think, of the school system.
Yeah.
Is that it doesn't allow for almost a creativity aspect.
100%. We could talk about that for hours. The fact that school hampers creativity.
Yeah, because the thing is, it's teaching you how to do things right and how to be productive members of society, but it doesn't teach you how to be an elite member of society.
So I'm gonna sum that up. Like, this is gonna be like a fucking banger ass reel or TikTok, right? Let's hear it. The problem with modern school and education is the fact that school nowadays teaches you what to think and not how to think.
Exactly. And that's almost like what philosophy is different from.
Exactly. 100%.
And that's why I know personally, and I know from doing a lot of research and talking to people with Asperger's, is that we do quite literally think differently. Mm-hmm. And I know with me, I would understand the how to do things, but I would always ask why. Mm-hmm. I would always want to know, why am I doing something? Why are you telling me to do this formula? And how am I going to use it in my life? And I know that's a big thing with a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And well, a lot of times the teachers just say, "I don't know, just do it," and we don't like to be told what to do.
Yeah.
We like to be able to figure that out for ourselves.
Absolutely.
So a lot of people become super rebellious, and then it transitions to your social life and your family situation where you don't want people telling you what to do, but they feel like they have to tell you what to do because they think as a parent's job, it's my job to protect my child, make sure he doesn't fail. But the biggest thing is letting your child fail and then teaching them how to pick yourself back up. Don't give them the solution, but make them figure it out for themselves, but just make them or ask them the right questions so that they can figure it out.
Absolutely. I think like one thing that's one thing I really wish I had more of as a child is like opportunities to be wrong.
Yeah.
Opportunities to fail. And like I'll give you an example. I was listening to this podcast the other day, and they were talking about like one of the best ways to educate a child is like how to deal with loss. And,
right.
Because that's like a really, it's a real applicable thing. If you don't teach someone how to deal with loss when they're young, when they eventually deal with it, whether they're in college or they have a real ass job or life or just whatever, they're not gonna know how to react. So
yeah,
they took
coping is huge.
Exactly. They took this example of like when you're playing chess with your child, don't like fucking demolish them because like don't like absolutely just make them feel like assholes or like shit.
Yeah, and show them why they did doesn't work.
Yeah, but like take them and show them maybe why this move wasn't the best. Or do that move where you don't want your child winning chess every single time. Like show them, like maybe beat them once every now and then and show them how you beat them. And more importantly, how they could beat you.
Yeah, so like how to think about the game as a whole. It's not about the game individually. If you think about baseball, hockey, basketball, everyone's following the same set of rules.
Yeah.
So as long as you're playing games fairly, which for the most part people do.
Yeah.
Then, well, these sports are good competition because they teach kids how to improve. And this is why I think like this whole participation trophy thing is really detrimental to kids.
Facts.
Because it's saying that if you fail, you are equal to the person that won.
Facts, bro.
That's
participation trophies suck dick.
Yeah, no, they don't work because they don't teach someone that you are responsible for your own success. They teach you that the society is going to give you success no matter what you do.
Right? I think participation trophies, like so many of these things that teach people it's okay to be like a loser, teach people it's okay to not try, not put in their 100% effort.
Right.
It tells them that like if you fail, like other people will pick you up. When that's just in reality, I'm gonna be real. That's just not how it is.
And then people like to play the victim card, and I know I've fallen victim to the victim card as well.
I was that victim, bro.
Sure.
I used to be that motherfucker that used to cry and hope and hope for things to get better and not take any action.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think it's just if you can really figure out how to heal yourself and do self-therapy. Granted, I think actual therapy is amazing.
100%.
Dealing with an actual psychologist that's trained on how to unlock your subconscious thoughts, or even unconscious thoughts that really deep who you are. Because I think if you really look internal long enough, you're gonna figure out things that are the unconscious of, well, why do I enjoy watching sports? Or why am I a finance major? Why am I an economics major? And then figuring out your core values and then how everything plays on top of that. Because if you can figure out your core values, then you can relate every single situation to them and then make it so that it benefits one of your core values. Because if you can actually touch up on your core values and do things that benefit them, then you're going to be a happier person.
Absolutely. I think like I was actually gonna post this on my Instagram story today, or maybe I think I posted this yesterday. Actually, my bad. Fucking the fact that all the answers that you are searching for they're already within you.
Right.
Those answers, whatever questions you have, whatever thoughts are gnawing at your brain, like those answers that you are looking for, they are not in this external world.
Right.
They're right here within your heart, within your brain, within your mind, within whatever is right here.
Yeah. And that's what thinking is.
And you've just got to look for that.
Exactly.
You just gotta think.
I mean, I'll put it this way: if you're taking, let's say, a test, okay, and this is what I find is really interesting about the human brain, and we can actually go, I guess, into the human brain after. Is that if you're taking a test, you might have a problem that's a hard problem, right?
Yeah.
Well, why is it a hard problem? It's a hard problem because you don't know what to do right now. Okay.
Yes.
If it was easy, well, then you just do it, right?
Yeah,
You've done it so many times before, it's second nature. But you can come to this problem that is extremely hard and it might stress you out. Okay. If you can eliminate the stress of the problem, because the problem's just a problem. Okay. That's its face value. The stress that you're feeling from this problem is all internal. You're causing your own stress.
Oh, all right, 1 second. I'll just. All right, continue.
Okay. So, during a problem, you're going to have to then think of, okay, well, it's not like I can just run out of the room screaming. So I'm going to have to actually try and solve the problem. Okay, you might go to easier problems first so you can get that out of the way. But eventually you're going to come to this hard problem that you don't know initially how to solve. Well, then, by thinking about how to solve it, you can then break it up into pieces and then solve the pieces to solve the problem.
Absolutely.
Okay, but the thing is, no one came to you and told you this is how to solve it. You had to think about your past experiences and how you learned it, and then think of, well, how does something in my past experience relate to what's on this test? Okay. And as long as you've had that past experience, it's somewhere in your memory, in your unconscious. You just need to figure out how to pull the right information. So you might be able to pull the right information by asking the right questions. So a question, not something that's broad, but something that's so specific. And we can actually, this is how computers work. Think about Google. If you type in dog into Google, it might just come up with a list of dog names, okay? If I then look up Australian Labradoodle, it's only going to come up with Australian Labradoodles. And then you can make the question so defined that it's only possible to get one output. Okay. And if you figure out how to ask questions like that, well, then everything can come so much easier because then you know how to ask the questions and then you know how to find the right information. Because information is going to come at you in 1,000 different ways. I mean, on tests, there's a lot of information that has nothing to do with the problem. And it'll throw you off because then you're thinking, well, this information's here, so it must be important. But a lot of information, well, it's just that. It's just information.
It's just information, yeah.
So if the question is, I'm going to, I guess for psychology, what are the 5 brain waves? And then in like a passage, is talking about psychology and all that. Well, that doesn't matter. All you're trying to find is the 5 brainwaves. That's a 2-second Google search.
Yeah.
And then people will think of it as a hard problem because there's all this information and all this input. But if you can sort it into what you're looking for, it's really just right there in front of you. So that's how I kind of look at everything in life. All the information is around you, but if you can figure out what information is important and then store that in your memory and be conscious about storing it, and you do that by being present in the moment, then you're going to have a much healthier, happier life because you know how to handle every situation. And also then you become more confident within yourself. So then when this information, which we call epiphanies, just pop up in your mind, you're going to be confident to understand that that means something. Okay, a lot of people have an answer, but they're not confident in sharing it. Like, let's say the professor asked me, what's 10 divided by 5? And I know it's 2, but no one else is raising their hand, and someone says 3, well, then I'm wondering, well, is my answer right?
Yeah.
But the thing is, if you just say your answer, well, it could be right, it could be wrong. That doesn't matter. What mattered is that you actually had the courage to say it. You had the courage to allow yourself to be wrong and accept criticism from your professor, your peers. You might look stupid for getting this simple problem wrong. But what you really did is you learned.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's the biggest thing, just being able to learn from every situation you're in.
Yeah.
Which is why, like, my bike, what I really took that as is a learning experience. I ended up talking to all the people around me that might have saw this event, gathered witnesses, found the security cameras that are on all the sides of the building, found the guy who runs the security cameras, talked to him. Then I went to the police station, filed a police report, which I've never done before. So now, well, I know what process to do in case something like this happens in the future. And then also, I got a really fun story to talk about to people.
Yeah.
And, well, this story of talking about how you were so happy that your bike got stolen catches people really off guard, because a lot of times when I say that, the immediate reaction from people is, oh, I'm so sorry this happened to you. Right? But the way I see it is that nothing happens, well, things happen, but nothing happens to you. Because if something happens to you, then you're accepting that you're the cause of the situation, or you're the cause of how you, or this situation is making you feel a certain way. Okay? And if you can really take control of that, and instead of thinking of things of situations happening to you, and instead thinking of you have control of how I react to every situation, because things in life just happen. Okay? What you do control is how you respond to it. Okay, that's what responsibility is. It's just the ability to respond. Okay, so what I did is I did all the necessary steps to get my bike back. So it doesn't matter if I got my bike back or I didn't. I did what I knew someone that would get his bike back would do. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
So then,
you assume the identity.
Right. Exactly.
Like James straight from Atomic Habits. You
Exactly.
assume the identity of the person that you want to become.
Right. And if you can have that mindset with everything you do, well, then you could be a very dangerously good person. Because you're going to have so much more experiences than other people and get so far ahead of the game because you're willing to just try and experience.
That's a very well put answer, because I'll give you a sort of like a connection to my life, because I'm in a class right now which is called comparative ethics, which is all about like morality and ethics. Yeah. So right now we just finished talking about Confucianism, which is like long time fucking ago.
Who's your professor?
His name is Jung Lee. He's dope. He's a dope motherfucker. I like him. He's funny. But basically we learned about Confucianism. And Confucianism, just like for everyone out there, is like a branch of Chinese philosophy that was like very popular during the early, like, I think like 50 AD. So like very, it's pretty old. It's up there. But basically, one of the things he was talking, like that's a main tenet of Confucianism, is that it doesn't, they're not like Confucianists aren't as concerned with what is right or what is wrong.
Yeah.
They're not really concerned with they're not concerned with what is determined right or wrong. What they care more about is creating the type of person that no matter what, whenever they're in any moral or ethical situation, they will always perform the right action.
Exactly.
And like, it's about creating this type of person that knows how to traverse life, rather than how to traverse. Like, does that make sense?
It's about, I think what you're saying is it's about seeing a situation for what it is, and then knowing exactly what you need to do to get there, and then on top of that, doing it.
Exactly.
Because it's one thing to know what you have to do, but it's another to actually just start.
Yes, well said. It's very, I catch myself sometimes, like, where I know what I need to do and I know what's best for me, but I'm scared to do it, or I'm scared to take that leap or that action. And it's like you have to catch yourself when you're in those moments. And you have to be like, yo, we gotta do this.
Especially with this podcast. This is what, the second episode?
Yeah, it's the second episode with a guest. I just recorded one, and actually I have one coming up tomorrow. Today is Thursday, October 6th, right? Yes. Thursday, October 6th. I have one coming up.
The 5th, but because there was 31 days and 30 and something.
Tomorrow's my first episode of the solo ones. So
gotcha.
What I want to do is like think ones like these, which are like interview kind of style, just us talking, and then I'm also doing solo episodes, which is cool.
That's awesome.
But but anyways, continue. So it's like literally the second episode of filming with a guest.
Yeah. So like one thing is that you had this idea of the podcast, and you sort of in your mind had this idea of what it's going to become, how it's going to grow, what you kind of want to do, but you can have all those ideas, and it could be a great idea. But then it's another thing to actually sit down with a microphone and record the first episode. Yeah. And the funny thing is, I'm willing to bet if you continue to do this consistently, a year from now, you're gonna watch this episode and you're gonna laugh because we are in a college classroom with a blackboard behind us, sitting with this microphone.
Right? Like I'm just envisioning it. I was literally talking about that on my first podcast with Jalen. I was like, yo, Bro, imagine a year from now when we're like so much further ahead. Like
Right.
maybe we have a studio. We have you know, two or three mics. It's like multicam set up. We've got like headphones and all that stuff, and like a proper like background and shit. And this is kind of where we started.
But let me ask you this: right now, are you enjoying the process of the podcast?
Fuck yeah, bro.
Right.
You know what? I was looking through, and on the YouTube video, I had like 45 views of the podcast, and like to me, that's 45 motherfuckers that chose to click on this video and at least listen to a minute of it. Yeah. And that's so fucking cool to me.
Yeah, so shout out to everyone that made it this far.
Yeah, shout out to everyone. Real quick, I'm going to reset the camera. I'll be back in a second. All right, so we are back. But yeah, man, it's like, to me, humble beginnings and like starting small and just and just caring about the process and the input that I put in. That's one thing I've started really focusing on. Like not really caring about the output, not caring about the things I cannot control, but everything I can control. The things like consistently uploading, the things like getting better with the editing, the things like, I don't know, just fucking doing this. Yeah. That's what I can control, and I'm gonna do whatever I can to put that in.
And that's a great mindset. But also, like, I guess one thing is, depending on how long you do this for, because I'm assuming you want to do this for a while, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You're gonna come across a lot of really hard times. Yeah. And it's so great right now because like you just started, you actually did something. But let's say you did only get 50 views for the next 20 episodes. Well, it might be a little discouraging.
Oh, 100%.
Because you want to grow, and like you have this mindset of like, oh, 45 people watch. Like but if you do it every day, then you're gonna start comparing yourself. And even if you're 200, 300 views, you're gonna want to hit 500.
Oh,
and then 1,000. To compare yourself to another podcast. Oh, why he got to 10,000 subscribers in 2 months? Why can't I do it in like why can I only have 200 subscribers?
100%, bro. I do that shit all. You guys know. I mean, I do so much social media shit where it's like, it's so hard not to find yourself comparing not to compare yourself to other people, because the reality is there is always someone that's reached the follower count faster. There's always someone who's reached that number or the sponsorship that you want quicker than you. There's always someone who's done it better or quote unquote better. But it's like, I mean, we were talking about this, right? You got to compare yourself to yourself. And it's I think it's an Oscar Wilde quote, which is like, comparison is the thief of joy. Yeah. And like you've probably heard that 20 million times.
Oh, sure.
But it's true. Right. It's true. And it's like, you've just got to focus on the small steps along the way and really just staying consistent and doing whatever you gotta do to get there.
Yeah. No, exactly. I mean, couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah, bro. That's dope. So tell me, what's like, I kind of want to do like a speed round where it's I say words or things, and like the first thing that comes to your mind, we'll go back and forth, alright? Okay. Alright, first one. Butterfly.
Caterpillar.
Okay.
Start. Okay. Lifting.
Food. I'm really hungry right now.
Fair.
Yeah.
You know what? How about this? Instead, let's make it more of like
a story.
Yeah. So
okay, let's do it.
How about give me a time when.
Oh, give you a time?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
No, so like, give me like a scenario, and then I'll tell you a time that relates to it.
Okay. When you realized that the people that you're around are not the type of people you want to be around. If there's ever a moment like that in your life.
You know, I think for me, I've always been like that.
Oh, okay.
I've never been secure in the groups that I'm in.
Oh.
And I think that actually kind of has to do with a big part of my personality, where my whole life I thought of myself as socially awkward and just like super unconfident, like self-conscious, and that kind of became my identity. So that it was almost like an infinite loop of what came first.
Yeah, it's like a feedback loop and it just keeps like recurring and recurring and recurring. Yeah.
So I mean, that's why I have had close friends, and then when I do form really close relationships, I tend not to let them go.
Yeah.
I find groups to be a little
artificial because
slightly agree to that.
Everyone has their best friend within the group.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you don't have that one best friend within the group, well then chances are you're kind of the straggler.
No, I was gonna say you're the straggler of the group. No, that's facts.
Yeah, and that's kind of how I've always been, where I would be introduced into a group from a friend, and then I wouldn't really respond too well in the group. And then, I mean, granted, I found out within the past week sort of the psychology behind it of why I am that way. And this whole like self-improvement thing still is really new to me. It's going on. It's October, so. On the 9th, it'll be in 3 days, my 6-month anniversary of, I guess, taking myself seriously and realizing that I have potential that I want to actually accomplish and hit. So I think going along the lines of the question of realizing a time that your friends might not be the ones you want to hang around with, I heard this saying once that there's 3 kinds of friends you have. Beer friends, wine friends, and whiskey friends. Okay,
that's really good. That's well put. Yeah, I like that. So I like that a lot. I'm gonna steal that from you.
Okay, go for it. Because I already stole it. So your beer friends are the ones that they're there to have a good time with you.
Yeah. They're pals.
Yeah, well, just the people that you might not talk about all the deeper stuff in your life, but you know that if you wanna drink and party on a Friday or Saturday night, I know who to call.
Yeah.
But those are my my beer friends.
Yeah.
Your wine friends are the ones that you do hang out with a little more closely. You might talk about things, but they might not be the deepest things ever. Like 100%. Realizing stuff about yourself and talking about like your deepest insecurities and where you want to be and where you were and where you are now.
Yeah.
And that's where like your whiskey friends come in.
Yeah.
And your whiskey friends are the ones that you really have to work to have those kinds of relationships. And unfortunately, most people never do.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
Yeah, so like those whiskey friends are the ones that I'm going to start a new business venture with. They know every single problem and every single high and low of my life, of my relationships, of how I'm doing in school, like how my companies are going, where I'm slacking. And I know that if I need advice, they're the ones I can, like those are the people I can go to and get honest advice. A lot of friends, they're newer friends, or maybe not you've never had the deepest conversations, so they want to just uplift you.
Yeah.
But the whiskey friends are the ones that will tell you when you're off your game, when you're not yourself. Okay? And that, like, genuine, unconditional love from a friend like that is just something that once you have it, no matter what happens, they're friends for life.
Yeah.
And everyone, I hope, when listening to that, can think of someone that's like that.
Yeah.
And if you can, understand that that's not a bad thing. That just means that where you're headed in life is something unknown at this present moment. But that's exciting because when you're going into the unknown, there's also room to make your life yours.
Yes. When you're moving into something which has no shape, you're the person who can mold it.
Exactly. You know? Because we really are, especially in college, high school, middle school, we're so malleable. Our brains, our physiology is changing. So we can really become whoever we want to be, and if we only compare ourselves to ourselves, then it's almost like you can't fail because you don't let yourself feel failure. There's one thing to not succeed in something, but there's another thing to allow that to become your personality, become your identity.
To let failure become your personality.
Yeah,
Fuck
so
that
like,
shit.
I'm just starting a watch business, right? And if that watch business doesn't succeed, well, I'm not going to say that my identity is a failure. I'm going to say I was a CEO. I learned how to run a business. I learned how to get investors. I learned how to hire people. I gave income to people. You know, like I supported other people and their dreams as well. So that's what I would take from a failure like that. And then if I succeed, well then awesome. But then it's about how can I use this to then help more people. Okay, so it's all about, and honestly the way I view helping people, I view it completely selfish. Okay, because, and I feel like this is how it always is. It's always, you want this mutual benefit, right? In business where I want something from you, but I also understand that you want something from me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's this give and take relationship that has to be equal. Okay, so let's say I am the CEO of a company and it is successful. Well, I want to then give back to further my purpose of being able to help people I care about. Okay, and that's why I'm saying that's selfish, is because it's serving my purpose. But it's also unselfish because I'm helping other people serve theirs. Okay, so it really does go both ways. And also, one thing, the way I see everyone, every interaction I have, and ever since I changed my mindset to this way, my life has been different. And it's realizing that every single person knows something that you don't. So in that sense, every person's superior than you. Yeah. But also understanding that you probably have experiences that other people don't. So in that sense, you're superior to them and they're inferior. So it evens out to the point where it doesn't matter if someone's the CEO, Bill Gates, if someone cured cancer, they're just a person that is in a different place than I am at this present moment.
Yeah.
So if I talk to them just as if I'm talking to a friend, or just, well, obviously within boundaries of respect.
Boundaries and
because treating people with respect is obviously most important. You can really just form better relationships because people are kind of caught off guard when I had an interview today and it went amazing because I actually asked about them too. I interviewed them just as much as they interviewed me because if I'm joining a company, I want to make sure that company is the right fit for me too.
Exactly.
Right. I don't see this co-op as just a way for me to gain experience and get paid. I see it as they're adding value to me and I want to bring value to the company. Exactly. Okay. Because if I'm not adding value, then that feels selfish for me.
Then what are you doing?
Exactly. Yeah. Because then I'm not really learning.
Yeah.
Because if you're not learning, then it's almost like you're not living. Right?
Yeah, that's facts, bro. If you're not learning, then you're not living.
Right. Then you're just a blob.
Then
you're used to be.
You're just that shell of a human being just like drifting through the wind.
Right.
Fuck yeah, bro. That's good. I like that shit. Do you have any we got about like a minute left.
Sure.
So any like closing remarks or thoughts you really want to hammer in on?
Just be yourself, man. And
That's
in
facts.
being your self, figure out who you are. I'm not saying like, oh, I'm a swimmer, I like watches, I blah blah blah, because that's all external.
That's all things.
That's all stuff I can see. I want to see who you really are. Like, why do you like watches? Why are you a swimmer? What are you aiming towards? Why are you a finance major? Why are you a whatever? Like, I want to understand the why behind you, which the thing is, it's really hard because you have to ask yourself the why behind it as well.
Yeah.
Why am I awkward in social situations? Okay. For me, I figured out, one, it was Asperger's, which is huge because that's something that completely puts my life in a different perspective.
Yeah.
But also then understanding, well, maybe it's because I feel uncomfortable in these big groups. Okay, well then, how can I solve that problem? Well, I read a lot of books on social situations. So it's just asking yourself and being open to the answer. Because you can ask yourself questions, but then not really listen to the answer.
Yeah.
And then it's just a waste of time.
And it's just a waste of time for both of y'all.
Exactly. Both of y'all, meaning you and the person.
You and you.
You
exactly.
and yourself and your unconscious. Because you really are having a conversation with yourself.
Yeah.
Which means you also have to listen to yourself.
Yeah. Just
as much as you want to bash yourself for not doing things right.
Absolutely, man. Fuck yeah, bro. You gotta listen to yourself because at the end of the day, it's like most times you know what's best for you.
Exactly.
And it's like the more you lie to yourself, the more you try to tell yourself the other thing, it's not gonna work out.
Yeah.
So everyone, just be yourself because everyone else is already taken.
Yeah, and thank you for bringing me on this podcast.
I appreciate you, bro. Thank you. We gotta run another one.
Of course,
this was fun as fuck. So let's run a second one of these.
Yeah, of course.
I think we'll do like a little follow up. Maybe we'll grab a little whiskey or some shit. We'll figure it out. All right. Well, Jack, thank you so much for being on here. Appreciate you, man.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much for listening, for watching, and enjoying and sharing the podcast. I love you all so much, very, very dearly. Have an amazing rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next episode. Peace.